Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
We're fucking live, man. I gotta say, I love your background, brother. Your background, you're showing me up. Now, I get made fun of a lot. So I have a lot of podcaster friends now. I've been doing this a while. And, you know, they always make fun of me given that I have a green screen, but I never put anything
Yeah,
on.
I saw that you had a green screen, and I was waiting for something to pop up, but
nope.
No.
I don't do it. And I feel like it adds to the funniness of having the green screen. And I'm surprised no one's put dicks around me at all. All the videos I've done, there's never been a dick. So I'm happy about it. I'll take it. Anyway, this is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Valincius, and I have the pleasure of having Rye with me. Now, Rye, you're the host of the podcast Codex of Curiosities, which when you reached out, I was super intrigued. I checked out your show. I fucking love what you got going on, man. Welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It's something that I've always been curious about, like the weird, strange, paranormal, cryptid kind of stuff. You know, possibly lost history, a little bit of everything. And I'm open to it all because I feel like I'm still like a kid in a candy shop with it all. It's like I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about this. But there's so much out there. So what not a better way than to have a podcast where people come and tell me all this stuff. You know, I sit there and I listen to all these amazing stories.
Yeah, I mean, look, dude, so this is episode 105 for me, I think that's where we hit.
Nice.
And I've had some people on that were not just they were either conspiracy theorists, people that were abducted by aliens, people that are in contact with ghosts and spirits. I've dabbled in a little bit of everything, and those shows tend to be the ones that I'm fascinated by the most. Now I'll tell you, I love conspiracy theories. Yeah. I'm all into that shit. I believe in the paranormal, the supernatural, aliens, all of it. I believe in all of it. So when I get someone that's on that's like bringing up experiences, it just I could probably talk for like 3 hours. And I know that like in the world we live in, a 3-hour podcast, and that's what I started with. I would do like 2-3 hour podcasts. No one really wants to go that long. Now your podcast might be a little different because you have like stories and feature sets and shit. You like, you know, you could probably go 7 hours on random topics, right?
I really could.
Or longer.
I really could. But, you know, I start to burn out around the 2.5, 3 hour mark. And I'm like, I'm done. And it's time to go. But, you know, like some of the guests that I have on, they could continue to talk. And again, I don't have an issue with it, but they could go on and on. Sometimes I'm like, we got to cut it, but let's have you back on, you know, in the future, because I just get burnt out. You know, I've been on all day. You know, I do online work. I work from home. I online all day, and then in the evenings, then I'm doing the show. And it's just like, okay, I'm losing my sense of being, almost, in a way. So yeah. I need to pay attention. I need to be on top of this stuff. So let's bring it back another day.
A lot of people don't understand too, because like when you're in front of a camera, like you got to be on, right? Like you have to be present. And especially if your life revolves around the internet, like if that's what you do for a living, it does make it. And it's weird because people are like, you know, you have the guys in the trolls in the comments where they're like, oh, you know, that's your job. Like, oh man. Like, and it's like, but no, you don't understand. Like, do it. Like, it drains you. And I was just telling my fiance, so like I had 2 podcasts booked today. I was actually interviewing. I don't interview family, but one of my family members I was going to interview. And he got sick. Dude, everyone's getting fucking sick around here.
Yeah.
It's like literally absurd the amount of whatever. I don't know if it's flu.
Could be that fog. It could be that bacteria fog that's floating around, you know, that powder fog or whatever the hell that is.
Dude, I fucking died. Like, so like on Friday, Like it hit me at like 2 o'clock. I'm sitting in my office. I work in in an office. I'm sitting there and I'm like, bro, I feel dead. It felt like I knew I was getting sick because like my joints, my elbows were hurting. Like I had just like we're fucking doing curls with my arms, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then my back started to feel sore, and I'm like, where the fuck is this coming from? I get home, dude. I'm under the covers. The wifey's looking at me like, dude, are you okay? I had 101. It was almost 102 degree fever, and I died for like 15 hours. I just literally went to bed, and I live in Northeast Philadelphia, so I don't know if, because I was going to bring it up, the fucking plane crashed.
Oh shit!
Yeah. I heard the explosion that happened like 10 minutes from my house.
No way.
Not even. Yeah, and so I heard a loud bang, and when you're in Philly, you hear noises, dude. So I just assumed it was like something stupid, like someone was picking up their trash and they dropped the fucking dumpster or something, and I'm like in bed, like under the covers, like fucking dying. And the next day I probably got up at like 11, 12 o'clock, and I was sore. It felt like I like lifted weights, but I was okay. Like I wasn't like dead. Like it was a weird, and I tested myself. It wasn't COVID, which I've had, even though I got fucking vaccinated, which I didn't want to, by the way.
I won't even get in there. I won't even go there.
I got vaccinated. So I got vaccinated because we wanted to travel. We wanted to go to Punta Cana.
Okay.
And at the time, you couldn't travel without getting vaccinated. And, I waited about a year after the vaccine came out, which still wasn't enough time. And I knew, dude, I'm telling you, ever since I got the vaccine, I have heart palpitations. Never had heart palpitations in my entire life. Been super healthy. Get them all the time. I get it all the time now. And I look at my watch, and my heart rate is normal on my watch. And I tell the doctor, and they do EKGs, and my heart rate's normal. I'm telling you, my heart rate, it stutters, and it's never done that ever. But it happened right after I got the vaccine.
Jeez, that
right after
that stinks, man. I know. There was a lot of people who were, I'll say, coerced, because that's exactly what you were. I wanted to travel. Well, I can't go unless I take this. So that's coercion, saying you can't do something unless you do this. But yeah, I didn't partake in that experiment.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I don't trust it. I still don't trust it. They fucked me up, I'm sure. And I'm not going to take any of the fucking
boosters,
17 boosters,
the Omicron, the
shit.
Decathlon, the Megatron,
I did my 2. Yeah. And that's it, and I shouldn't even did that, dude. I was out prime COVID, never got sick, not one time. I never had any issues. The moment we got that shot, I got sick. The moment I got the shot, a month later, is when I actually got COVID.
Yeah.
A month after I got the shot.
That's exactly what happens, man. Everybody that I know who got the shot got sick. And their claim that it's safe and effective, well, that's not effective.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yeah. No. Yeah.
You need 5 years to work on that shit, bro. Not 6 months.
Minimum.
Not 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I don't want to get too far into that, because I know that is probably that's a topic I don't mind going in, but I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. So.
Well, there's it. You know what? Because they don't want to feel stupid for making a decision that the government said, everything's healthy, but it's the same thing with. Do you believe the fucking, the Food and Drug Administration? You shouldn't, because half the food we eat, actually more than half the food we eat is toxic here.
I've
talked about this before.
I totally agree. Like, okay, you cross the border, you go north to Canada, let's talk Fruit Loops. How many dyes did they use? Like that, they use that Red 5 and all these cancer-causing dyes. And in Canada, what do they use? They use natural fruit to dye Fruit Loops, okay? Which seems, okay, that's reasonable, but they still won't even change it in the US. You can get all these types of fruit dyes that will cause cancer and all this other crap. But yeah, and this is what we're, you're raising your children on this kind of stuff. And you're assuming that these associations are looking out for your best interest, but no, they're looking out for their bank accounts, because they're just getting paid to pass things, which is what's happening.
And it's funny you mentioned Fruit Loops because I saw a TikTok, and I was going to talk about this, of a guy that was eating Fruit Loops from Canada. I don't know if you saw this, and Fruit Loops from America. And the Fruit Loops from America looked way better because it was all these crazy colors.
Yes.
And the Fruit Loops from Canada was very like bland. So he did a blind taste test of each one. And he's, oh, this is delicious. This is amazing. And it turned out it was the fucking Canadian version where they just used all natural juices to flavor the Fruit Loops. It doesn't look as good.
Exactly. They look like a duller version. Like, and I know that personally. Like, they have this dull look to them, almost like this powdery kind of like whitish look to them, almost like, like they're purple, but it's this like, I don't know, washed out. Well, that's what I like to do. Washed out colors is exactly what it looks like. So it doesn't look amazing, but it tastes good.
But and look, you know what? If everyone listens to this wants to, be part of the crowd, go for it, man. One thing I've learned is I don't trust fucking nobody. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the doctors. Half the times doctors say shit they have no fucking clue what they're talking about, you know, and, call me a conspiracy theorist, call me whatever the fuck you want. I've come to a point in my life, I'll be 39 this year, and pushing the 40 mark, where I just don't trust any of these motherfuckers. No, anything that they say or do, it's for money. They put you on pills because they get paid for it. The pills, they make tons of money.
Yep.
So like, it's like, and then the government is being lobbied by the people that make the pills. So like, you're the one that's paying the price, and everyone else is getting paid, which is just so fucked up.
And I'm going to say this, like, so I have some friends, some other fellow podcasters who brag about the drugs that they're on. Oh yeah, I'm taking this. And, like one guy was doing one for high blood pressure. I'm like, oh, well then you have high blood pressure. No, it runs in the family. So I'm just taking it as a precaution. What kind of mentality is that? And it was like this badge of honor that like they knew their drug names. I've never known, like I know penicillin, and that's about it. But it's crazy. And when you're talking, doctors don't know anything. They don't. And this is something where they're like, oh, trust the doctors. Going back to vaccines, because this is a hot topic. My good friend is a doctor, and he is aware of all the bullshit that's going on. And I asked him, how long do you study vaccines for? I really want to know this question because like you are the arbiter of the truth to all these people. And he's like, if you're lucky, there's only one day out of the whole time that you're in med school, that you learn about vaccines. And all you learn about is just the schedule that you need to administer them. He says the rest of the information comes after, but that is by the salesmen who are selling you the vaccine. So as a salesman, are you going to say this is not safe and it's not effective? Of course you're going to say it's safe and effective, and any type of side effects are minimal. They're not going to go into it. So when you're saying I don't trust anybody, thank God. That is where we all have to start. Don't trust anybody and look for yourself. Like we've all become lazy. We all want everything. It's like scroll on TikTok and just feed me my information. I'm too lazy to go look for it myself. And hey, I'm just as guilty of that. There's many times where I sit there, I'm like, oh, this is just easier. I'm just
doom scroll.
Yes, I'm just going to sit there instead of actually go and look into something. But when I look into something, man, that is a dark, deep rabbit hole that if anybody wants to get into it, my first suggestion is Del Bigtree from the High Wire. That is the person who will start to give you the truth. And even he says, don't trust me. Here's all the science. Like he provides you with all the science and he says, just go look for it yourself. He'll tell you what the science says. But again, he says, I provide you with every single paper, every single piece of information. You go look for it yourself. And I could not agree more with that. Like when people tell me stuff, I do get caught up sometimes. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. But, it's up to us to go look into things ourselves, and not rely on other people. And when we're talking conspiracy stuff, like that Q, I don't know if you know much about Q, but for me, or the QAnon.
Yeah.
Absolute bullshit. It's like everybody believes that it is this most, like, the people who follow it or who did follow it believed it was the most amazing thing. And I got caught up a little bit. Oh, this sounds so great. But all they kept doing was prolonging things. Oh yeah, it's going to happen. Trust the plan. Trust the plan. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. This is happening. People are in Guantanamo Bay, getting executed and all this other stuff. Zero proof at all. Just the key was, in my opinion, this was a psyop to get people to sit on their couch and do absolutely nothing. Instead of doing stuff for yourself, they told you, trust the plan. Stay the course, trust the plan. What does that mean? That means just sit down, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just sit there. How great is that for, let's say, a government agency or someone who's trying to control the direction of, of a country, of a nation? And if you can get people who'd work against you to sit down and just like wait for the next,
blindly follow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that is it in the beginning? And don't get me wrong, there were some truth pieces to it, but I believe every good psyop has to have that, because you need to keep the people going. Like, if it was just bullshit after bullshit after bullshit continuously with nothing actually happening, you would lose a lot of people. But if you give them one out of maybe 20 or maybe even 10 or 15, people will stick by and they'll be like, okay, I'm just going to sit here. And you got some people hook, line, and sinker. And like I said in the beginning, I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I watched that QAnon, I forget what it was called, but it was a documentary, and it looked great. It looked great, and everything was trust the plan. Where we go one, we go all. And I'm like, yeah. And it was all this rah, but nothing happened. And it was kind of like, after like the 7th or 8th disappointment, like, that's it, I'm done. And I just still had friends that were still like following it hook, line, and sinker. And I'm like, come on, man, this isn't what you think it is.
Well, I mean, look at we brought up doctors,
Yep.
right? And we're going to talk about you because I want to get into you, but we talked about doctors, right?
I'm no doctor.
It's the same concept. It's the same concept of blindly following things. Like, Rockefeller is the one that created all of the fucking doctor textbooks.
Yep.
In what, the 40s or 50s? I don't know.
Even earlier than that,
right? Maybe the 20s.
Yeah, and even not just that, they even did the school system. They rewrote all the school system. Yeah.
Right? And with the doctors, he got rid of all of the natural medicines because he was trying to push petroleum because he had fucking so much of it that he needed to put that in all the medicine that they would prescribe. And then for schools, he changed all the criteria because they wanted factory workers. So shit that you learn in school that you're like, why the fuck am I learning this? Instead of learning how to control my debt with credit cards and, I don't know, maybe think for myself. You learn none of those things in fucking school.
Zero.
Because they just want you to be a bee, a factory bee. And people blindly follow and trust all those things, and all of it is total and utter bullshit. Total bullshit.
I agree. The hardest part is unlearning all that. Like, if you went to school, is trying to unlearn all of that and to rewire your brain so that you can think independently. It's difficult because even for myself, I try to think that sometimes I'm an independent thinker, but many times there's me following the masses again, and doing what being a good worker bee is exactly what it is. And you were saying about so with rewriting the school, all the school curriculum, another thing they did is by doing that, you can actually change history by rewriting the books and telling children, training them a certain way. The only way to rewrite history, like the only thing you're up against is one generation. You get past one generation. So if you teach all these children this new history and their parents know it's something else, well, it's just one generation. They move on, and then the next ones learn it. The next ones learn it, and the next ones learn it. There are some people who still, grasp and hold on to the authentic history, but for most part, it's gone. To the victor goes the spoils kind of thing. They are the ones who write the history, and it's crazy.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah. I've seen a lot of stuff about Hitler lately, where you have a lot of people that are like Hitler. They think he's, I guess, what's the best way to put it? That he was brilliant in all of his stuff, and
That's
they
a tough
kind of
one.
throw out some stuff.
Yeah.
And it's tough because he caused mass genocide,
Yes.
right? And he did a lot of crazy fucking shit because he was, well, for starters, he was high on cocaine or meth. Basically. 99% of the time he was Fuhrer, but which I read. What book is that? Oh God, it's the book. Joe Rogan had him on his podcast. Fascinating book. If you're into history, I'll tell you. Hold on, this is it'll drive me nuts. I don't mind me.
No problem. And then
you
know what? I totally believe that Hitler survived. I believe Hitler was living in Argentina. Too much information pointing that way that he escaped to Argentina. Way too much information.
A lot of blonde hair, blue eyed people in Argentina.
100%. Yeah, extremely
Blitzed. The book is called. If you're into history, read Blitzed by Norman Ohler. It is a fascinating story about how Blitzkrieg was started. Basically, a lot about Hitler's doctor and what he did to kind of orchestrate and basically fucking drug Hitler the whole time, and how the entire country of Germany was on meth. And I can't fucking remember the name of the drug that they had it on, but it was just a pill that was just it was meth, literally. And he talked about how, the army was just that much smarter and cunning when, in the beginning when, you're just feeding the fucking army meth. But it's wild because you learn about a lot of the companies like Merck.
Yep.
And some of these other companies that are big time drug companies. Like, did you know Bayer created heroin?
I do. You could buy it in a bottle. You could buy it in a bottle.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So Bayer created heroin.
Yeah.
And a lot of those major drug companies, Merck, Bayer, people that you trust now with your fucking Advil and shit, were the biggest drug peddlers in the whole world, right? For heroin, cocaine, meth, like shit, before it was made illegal, they were the biggest drug peddlers in the world. They created all this shit.
And this is the thing is they're not in the business to cure you. They're in the business to treat you for the rest of your life. So like once a customer, they don't want to lose you as a customer. So just think of that. If you're taking that next pill, and this is the crazy thing. So I used to pop Advil like it was candy. I'd have headaches all the time. And I'm finally like, I gotta quit this. So like, I would say almost every day I was taking Advil, or every other day I was taking Advil. I'm like, I gotta stop this. So when I finally cut myself off, and that's kind of, it sounds funny. It wasn't like I was addicted, but I was like, fuck, I got a headache. I got to take this Advil again. And so when I cut myself off, my headaches intensified for about a week to 2 weeks, then gone. Never a headache. Like every now and then I'll get a random headache, but never like it was. It was, in my opinion, the Advil I was taking for the headaches was in turn causing my body to, I would have more headaches.
Induce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. So all right, let's talk about you, man. Talk to me a little bit about growing up. What made you gravitate towards the paranormal?
I was a weird kid.
Obviously, everyone's got their own stories, right?
I was the weird kid. That's the best way to describe it. It was, but I wasn't like the smelly weird kid and shit like that. That never showered and stuff like that. But it
wearing the UFOs and painting his face and shit. Yeah.
It was because I had weird. I wasn't the guy listening to Klingon on the ghetto blaster. I went to school with a guy who at lunchtime had this ghetto blaster, like this old school ghetto blaster, listening how to speak Klingon during lunch hours, and that was. But okay. But myself, though,
that's awesome.
I just had weird experiences.
We need to find that guy. We need to fucking
Stephen
find
Bradshaw. I still remember his name to this day. Stephen Bradshaw.
Stephen Bradshaw, you're listening to this.
I'll never forget.
We hope that you can speak fluent Klingon.
When he was in high school, he was telling us that when he finished, he was going to build Starship Enterprise, and then he realized there's not enough titanium in the world to do that. So then he's going to build the warp engine for his car, which. Amazing. Those are the kind of characters that I would love to, just
Get on the podcast.
Yes. What is going on with you now, man? What did you travel anywhere? What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a fucking warp drive, bro? Talk to me.
So for me, it wasn't like I was weird like that. It was weird that I had these weird experiences. So one of my first real memorable experiences when I was in grade 4, I was running this race for this. It was called the Canada Fitness Challenge because in Canada we had this Canada Fitness Challenge. You had to do running, you had to do like push-ups and sit-ups in a certain amount of time and a certain amount in within that. So I was doing this running race and I wanted to get the excellence badge because I wanted to be a good little worker bee and do the best I can. So I was running the race and there were some kids that were a little faster in front of me and we're almost at the finish line and I was like, the hell, I'm going to lose this. So I pushed it as hard as I could for, probably 10 years. I was 10 years old or 9 years old. I'm like, I'm going to push it as hard as I can. And when I did that, I shot out of my body, which sounds absolutely crazy. So I was about 15, 20 feet up in the air looking down. Okay. And I'm looking at everybody running in front of me. And then I see myself just, about five paces or 5 steps behind everybody else. I see myself. And as soon as that happens, I'm like, whoop, back into my body and I finish the race. And as soon as
That's wild.
Yeah. And as soon as I finish, I have no filter. I just start telling people, guess what happened? This happened. And that's when I started being dubbed, the weird kid.
The weird kid.
Yeah. So I had these weird experiences. So that was a memorable.
Did you win?
I got the excellence badge. I made it fast enough.
All right.
I didn't pass those kids, but those kids were all within the time limit to make it in the excellence. So yeah, that was the
good for you,
thanks.
Man. Good for you.
Thanks. Yes, being a good worker, making the getting exercise. So
that's wild.
So that was it. And then growing up, I'm positive. Like we built this one house, and there was so many paranormal experiences going on in that house that it was just ridiculous. Like my mom was seeing stuff, I saw stuff, and so when we're talking about me, it would be that I've had numerous experiences throughout my life that kind of. And I was always interested, like one of my first real interests was like the Bermuda Triangle or the Loch Ness Monster. I was just that was my thing. That was my jive. And so that's what I wanted. And I was like, I want to know more. And whenever there was any shows that came out, Unsolved Mysteries, I ate that up, and it was
love it.
Robert Stack. That guy was legend. But that's kind of where it was. But there was one incident that was, I would say, would be my defining moment. And this one put me on this trajectory, this path. And I was around the age of 18 years old, 17 or 18 years old. And I had just come home from a friend's house. We weren't drinking nothing. It was at the time when you could rent video game consoles from like Blockbuster and whatnot. So
nice.
Yeah, none of us could afford one, but we could rent one. And so we had rented one, and it was over at my friend's place, and we're playing, and I had to work in the morning, so my friends drove me home, and I remember, and I always say this when I tell this story, but that night the Northern Lights, or the Aurora Borealis, were out in full force, and I remember sitting outside after they had dropped me off and looking up because we lived on a little farm, and I was looking up at the sky, and it was just amazing seeing these things dancing. I'm like, well, I got to work early in the morning, so I better get my butt up to bed. So I'm laying in.
I'd love to see those, man. I'd love to see those. It's probably a fucking cool experience.
It is. I think I took it for granted because I don't want to say it was common, but it was common enough that you enjoyed it. But
you're not seeing that shit in Mexico.
No, you are not. That's something.
But it's 95 degrees.
It's 95 degrees. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining right now. When it hits 110, then I'll start complaining, which will be in about 2 months. So, but yeah, so I went to bed, and I'm laying there in bed and doing that clock watching thing where you're like, wow, if I fall asleep right now, I'm going to have 7 hours and 43 minutes of sleep. And then it's like, okay, 7 hours and 13 minutes and 6 hours and 58 minutes. So I'm doing that. I can't fall asleep. I'm just watching the damn clock. And now this is the strange part. And some people have claimed that, you had sleep paralysis, which I don't believe so because I was in control of my body to do what I did. So it was as if I got a message. And this is strange. It wasn't like someone was like talking to me in my mind or someone was whispering in my ear, but I just got like this urge or this message to like look up. And so I rolled onto my back and I looked straight up, and floating above me, about 3.5 feet above me, was this apparition of sorts, this shadow. And I could see the head, perfectly formed head. Then I could see the neck where it curves in with the neck and the shoulders. It went down to the torso. Now this thing was, when I said shadow, it was blacker than black. So it's at nighttime, though it's not completely dark in the bedroom, but it's dark enough. But like this thing is
Yeah.
sucking in any light. Like it's blacker than black. That's all I can say. Now, when it got around the torso area, around the waist, it faded off into this white wispy smoke. Like very Hollywood-esque. This is what a ghost will look like with these white wispy smoke.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what it kind of looked like around the waist. So I could not see legs or nothing. It was just this white wispy smoke. I did not see any hands. The arms were by the side. Like I could see the arms going by the side, but when it went past that point, it was as if it had come through like a doorway, and half of it was through the doorway. Now, that's scary on its own. But what was the scariest part was the eyes. And now these eyes were and I've heard someone else describe this just today, actually, maraschino cherries. It was about the size of maraschino cherries and the same color, but like glowing, like an incandescent glow to these eyes. Not like spotlight shooting out, but these eyes were glowing. They were a red. And
that would freak me the fuck
Yes.
out, bro. That would freak
Exactly.
me out,
And
man.
that's when people were like, oh, you had sleep paralysis because you couldn't move. And I said, well, I couldn't move because I was scared shitless. You know, you have the fight, flight, or freeze. So everybody forgets the freeze part where people just don't move. You know, maybe if I'm not going to move, for me, it wasn't like it's not, if I don't move, it's not going to see me. No, for me, it was like, I can't move because I'm so scared. And so this went on for a couple of seconds, and it just went, just gone like that. Now, I don't know how long I laid there because I did not fall asleep. I don't know how long I laid there. The next thing I know, I was waking up in the morning with my alarm clock going off for work. And this is something that I kept to myself for years. I didn't tell next to nobody, you know. It was because it was very traumatic. It was very scary. It was something that no one else should experience. And you know, now that I'm at this point in my life, oh yeah, I tell everybody because it's a damn cool story. But also, what it does is it opens the door for other people who are like, oh, I saw something when I was younger. Or I saw something, you know, a couple of years ago, and it could be something different. It could be something the same. But what it does is it opens the door and allows people to see that I'm not crazy. You're not crazy because we've all experienced something that is beyond explanation. You know, it's beyond crazy. Like people will just call you crazy, but you're not. You know, there really is something else out there. There really is, and there's explanations for these things. And that's kind of my journey that I'm on. So, you know, like I the full name of my show is Codega's Codex of Curiosities, and Codega was a person. It was a profession from the 14th, 15th, and 16th century who would guide people in Venice with a lantern through the dark streets, and he would protect them from criminals and thieves and ghosts and demons. And along the way, he would tell them a story and give them the courage and provide protection and guide them to their destination. So that is kind of what I feel that I am doing. It's not like I'm a hero or nothing. I'm just helping people get to their destinations, but I can't unless you want to come along.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, look, dude, I'll tell you what I dealt with. When I was younger, and I chalked it up as sleep paralysis because that's the first thing you always do, right? But I know it was at night. I was laying on my stomach because I was a stomach sleeper when I was younger, and I could move my neck and head. I felt like I couldn't move my body. And it could be sleep paralysis because it kind of fits that, but you never really know, right? And as we open this podcast, we don't trust anything that people say, right? So I'm laying there and an entity is jumping on my bed, and it's in my head and like in my being, I feel like it was a kid,
Okay.
I don't know. Because I didn't see it. And I could almost feel it giggling, but I didn't hear it giggling. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain. But I'm trying to scream and I can't. But it's jumping and I can't move to see where it is, and it's jumping and jumping. And I could feel it feeding off of me being scared.
Oh,
I
yeah.
could feel it. And then I was able to move and it was gone.
Wow.
But I was like, I still remember it very vividly. And my brother had the same exact experience.
In the same
because
house?
We lived in the same house.
Yep. Cool.
So to me, I feel like it wasn't sleep paralysis. I feel like it was an entity or a being just fucking with me.
Yeah.
Because they love to feed, especially if it's an evil being, they love to feed off of that fear.
Yep.
You know, because I couldn't open my mouth. I couldn't vocalize. I couldn't move.
Well, technically, and I said, some people say it's sleep paralysis. It's almost a blur between what is sleep paralysis, what isn't, because sleep paralysis is still being haunted by an entity. But I've interviewed a specific person who has dealt with sleep paralysis all her life, and she actually believes it's alien abduction. That you are what you think you're seeing, you're not actually seeing. It's what's called a screen memory that's put over top of you. It's overlaid onto you. And if you look around the room, if you're able to, because usually you can look around, there will be something that is not quite right. Maybe the window is not center of the wall. It's just over this way. Like they always mess something up. And it's called They Come Out at Night. I believe that what it's called. And Vicky Joy Smith is her name. And yeah, so she believes that
would fuck me up, bro.
Mhm.
That would fuck me up. Listen to that shit, dude. I'm telling you, look, I'm 38. That happened. I was probably 16, 17.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if something sticks with you that long, and then I remember telling my brother, I'm like, dude, he's like, dude, that happened to me too. Wasn't the same night, but he's like, that literally happened to me too. And I'm like, all right, there's got to be something going on where something was there.
100%.
You know, I don't know what it was, but something had to have happened. And obviously, as a person, you try to rationalize things. But I've begun to understand this as, I feel like when you're in your 30s, you start to understand things better, right? It's just like a natural progression.
You're just starting to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've started to understand that, like, you can get things, but you don't have to understand them for them to exist.
Yes.
And something happened, but there, and I don't know what it is. And I know if it happened to my brother as well, and he still remembers it, like we're 5 years apart, like something fucked with us. And, who fucking knows what it was?
It was definitely some sort of demon entity or thing that was messing with you and feeding off your as one person. As there's this whole group of people that will call it loosh, and I think that name, I don't like that term, but they'll call it loosh. And
yeah, it's a little weird.
Yes. So this group of people actually believe that Earth is a prison planet, and they talk about these entities that will feed off your fear and off the negative emotions. And though that part of it, I actually believe, like what you're saying, I don't believe that Earth is a prison planet, but I do believe that they're feeding off our fear. And, there's a much darker side to that if we get into that with like celebrities and everything else, when we start talking about feeding off fear. And there is something that is along those lines. But like, this is the thing, is that we see like less, not even close to 1% of all the visible, like the visible light is less than 1% of all the light spectrum. Okay. So that means we're only seeing this much. So who's to say that there's not other things coexisting beside us that we just cannot see? We get that weird feeling, that gut feeling. Maybe there's something that's just passed by us, that, we are sharing this reality with. It could be millions of other entities that we just don't even see. And, people, and speaking of that, like, people always laugh at like, I can feel a vibration. I can feel these frequencies, this frequency of love. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. Well, they use their cell phones and and listen to their Bluetooth. And I'm like, okay, so if you don't believe in those types of frequencies, then what's operating your, it's because you can't see it, right? So what's operating your cell phone? What's operating your Bluetooth? If you don't believe in those frequencies and those vibrations and those signals, then that shouldn't be working. This device shouldn't be working. So they exist. They definitely exist. And I believe that some of these entities live in that world where they can manipulate, because there's entities that manipulate electronics. If we get into paranormal, there is like electronic interference and whatnot, discrepancies when people go out and they do their ghost hunting. And it's kind of like, well, how do they do that? Well, they're in that frequency of be able to affect those. They can see it. It might, who knows? It might look like these little strings. You can pull on these strings and manipulate these strings of energy that are going by, and that is how they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the my last episode that I had on, it was a guy. He's a professional poker player.
Cool.
He did really well. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars playing poker in Vegas, because he also had a ability to speak with spirits slash look, so I bring this up because I don't know what your view of the afterlife is. Okay, I'll tell you mine, you can tell me yours.
Sure.
But I'm starting to believe that it's not this, there's hell, there's heaven, and then there's earth. I'm starting to believe, and I've read books and I've interviewed people where, earth is earth. This is where we are physically. And you're here for a mission, or you have a duty, and you have no idea what the fuck that is. Yep. And you either do it or you don't, and you die. And then you get to review your life. Right? You go up to this other dimension or this other realm, and you have other spirits or beings that are kind of like your guides, or that have leveled up to a certain degree, where they've been around for a long time, and they talk to you about what you did wrong. I think there's penalties for things. If you kill someone, you come back and your debt is a lot higher. You have a karma debt. That's kind of where I am right now, and I know that sounds probably weird to a lot of people, because it was like, oh, there's God, and there's this, and you have to do this, and there's heaven and there's hell. I kind of don't believe in the heaven and hell thing. I do think that there's something to that, and that there's a higher realm, a higher being. But the guy that I had on was just, he was talking to me, but he talked about, because I was telling him I always feel like that I've seen psychics, and they've always told me I've had someone around me. And he reached out to that being, and he talked to the being, and he said it was someone that was on my mom's side of the family.
Cool. It
was a great grandfather that's like around, he visits. And then I asked him to talk to my dad. My dad lost his wife, and I asked him to talk to her.
Okay.
And I saw him go from fine to visibly upset, almost like crying, when he connected to her. And look, you could say what you want about people being psychics and stuff and not believing what they say, but I visibly saw him, and I'll say this. Both time he connected to the beings, my podcast disconnected and reconnected. And I've done 105 episodes. That's never happened. And I've never had a psychic who I've had actively do something on my show. I've never done it. Because I always feel like it's like I'm getting something for free. I'm like, I don't know, it's a little weird. I'm like, he offered, and I was like, you know what? Let's try.
Do it.
Right? We're it's the internet. Let's see what happens. 2 times that he did it, 2 times he disconnected and reconnected, weirdly. That's never happened.
Crazy.
So, and he said some things when he connected to those people that kind of, it wasn't. Look, I've seen a lot of psychics, right? And they feed off of what you say to them.
Yes. The cold reading, as they would call it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a little different. And I kind of believe in that. But what's your thoughts on that?
So when it comes to psychics and mediums, I'm a healthy skeptic. I would say. Yeah. Many times I do believe. There's some that I'm like 100% they're legit, and there's other times I'm like, you're just full of shit. You're cold reading, or you believe yourself so much, but you're not really doing exactly what you think you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe now. Now this is the thing: is that doing the podcast that I do when I have many technical issues that cannot be explained. Many technical issues. When I talk about certain subjects, I'm not going to mention the subjects, but when you do, something happens. I had one guest who I had lined up a couple of times, and just before his computer motherboard blew on his computer, and then it was something else, and then it was something else, and finally he's like, I don't think I'm supposed to talk to you, and he just gave up, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like,
Wow.
that usually when that happens, it's a good one, because I had one guest who multiple cancellations, multiple issues, technical problems, and that episode it's done okay, but it's my favorite. It is by far my
Yeah.
favorite episode. Yeah, it's crazy. So I do believe that there is something out there. We believe that we can connect to people on the other side or entities on the other side, though I do believe we need to be aware, and I don't know if we really know of who or what. I say what we are connected to on the other side. Now,
Agreed.
I'm sure there's some benevolent beings on the other side, but there's also malevolent as well that who aren't going to come out and be like, "Aha, I'm evil."
Gotcha,
Yeah,
bitch.
I'm
You know,
evil.
yeah.
No, they're going to come out being like, "I'm your grandma. I'm your mother-in-law who passed away," or something like that. But they'll come out like that because they know what's all been going on. They're able to access all your information, and then they're going to confuse it. So that's one thing was what I highly advise against is Ouija boards. Stay away from Ouija boards, please, for the love of God. I used one, and before that incident, so I used one about. That incident happened about 2 years after I used a Ouija board in the house. We used it multiple times, and I really think that things ramped up after the fact. So who knows? I just believe that you don't know what you're talking to or who you're talking to, and
Yeah.
it's actually a form of minor possession. And if you wonder how, it's because the planchette is not going to move on its own. You have to put your hands on it to move it, right? So the
Yep.
possession happens in your hands. So you're allowing an entity to manipulate your hands and to move your hands into the direction it needs to go. So there is a form of minor possession that is happening when you use a Ouija board. So just be careful.
Yeah, I mean, look, dude. So there's a book. I know I'm giving you, like, I saw you take notes.
Yeah.
If you want to read a book, it's called Many Lives, Many Masters. You can read the abridged version. It's by Dr. Brian Weiss.
I've heard this one before. Mm-hmm.
And that fucked me up, that book, because it talks a lot about he's a psychologist, and he was doing hypnotism, and he was working with a client, and she was constantly going into her former lives and explaining everything up to the point where they died. They could explain when they died, and eventually he tapped into the masters, who are those souls that have they call it gamification, right? Where they've leveled up,
Yep.
or it's basically souls that have lived many lives and have reached a certain degree, I guess, of experience. And they were saying, hey, they were talking to him through this girl, and that's the shit that fucked me up, because I'm like, there's got to be a little something to this.
I agree.
And you know what? At this point, right, when you get to a certain point where it's like you die, you don't fucking know. And by the time you do know, it's too late to tell anybody, what's going on. But that book fucked me up. I always tell people, like, on this podcast, like, check it out. You can listen to the abridged version. It's 2 hours on audiobook. But it fucked me up a little bit, dude, because
and
when you get older.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just when you get older, you start to think about death a little bit more.
Of course.
And what the concept of that is. And that book threw me for a loop, because I was born Catholic, right? Like, you think heaven, hell,
Yep.
God, the devil, right? That's what you're taught. But that kind of threw me for the loop, that it could be a whole different structure, when you die.
And I agree.
And what your soul is.
I totally agree. Like, there was a book that I read called Conversations with God. I was born Catholic as well, and that book threw me for a loop, because when you said, like, there's karmic debt, because you were talking about karmic debt in this book, they're talking about there isn't karmic debt, that throughout our life we need to experience absolutely everything. So At one point, you're the murderer. The next point, you're the victim. You're the saint. You're the sinner. You're everything. You will be everything. You'll just keep reincarnating until you've experienced absolutely everything that has to be experienced, and then you get to move on. And that was kind of my secondary kind of eye-opening move away from religion and move into the new age. And then from the new age, it was over into shamanism. And then from shamanism back into, I wouldn't say Christianity, but back into, my search, my relationship with God, and it's kind of like I'm approaching it from a different perspective. And I don't need a guy standing on top of a pulpit telling me what's right and what's wrong. I will do it myself.
Yeah, I mean, look, I believe there's a God.
Yeah.
What that God is, I don't know. And I've always been a scientific person, right? I'll see it when I believe it, But I do think that there's things that can turn that upside down, right? There's things you can't explain. There's things that obviously no one can explain until they see it. And I think the afterlife is obviously it's 100% one of those things because you really don't know. By the time those things are discovered, and I've seen accounts, especially with the internet now, right?
Yeah.
You see accounts with everything. No one fucking knows, man. You don't know. I don't know. You don't know. I might be wrong. You might be wrong. Maybe fucking Catholicism is right. Maybe Hindus are right. You don't fucking know, dude.
Yeah.
I think religion's weird. I think it's a way to control people.
Yeah, I believe it's been perverted. I believe it had its grassroots were of good intention, but then like just about every type of good intention movement of sorts, it always gets like hijacked and perverted and moved into a direction of control.
Yeah, 100%. All right, well, let's hit this topic real quick. Aliens. You got a lot of fucking episodes about aliens, brother.
I do.
Where do you think aliens come from? What are aliens?
Okay, so this is.
Hit us.
Let's go.
I want the knowledge.
Okay, so aliens, in my beginning opinion, were of extraterrestrial, meaning, and I don't mean from outer space. I mean from our Earth. Okay, so extra land, extraterrestrial. Terrestrial means our Earth, our land, and extra. Okay, so that means extra land. So I believe that there was some sort of breakaway civilization many, 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 many years ago, and they evolved faster and they're more technological advanced, and that takes us into Atlantis. But I'm not going to go there. So that is one aspect to it. The other aspect I actually was something learning of this. This is something that was new to me, and it's like maybe over the past just over a year, it's kind of like coming to like so many people talking about this, is that aliens are in fact the fallen angels. Okay, and the grays are the shell that can be possessed by demons. Now, demons, if people don't know, demons aren't bodies. They aren't like this creature that is walking with a pitchfork and a spiked tail and stuff like that. No, demons are disembodied spirits, okay? Which takes us into the Nephilim, because the Nephilim were the children of the fallen angels, okay? And if they were killed, their spirits wandered the land for eternity. And those are your disembodied spirits, which are demons. Now, these spirits want to inhabit and possess anything. So the gray aliens are these types of shells. Like think of the Iron Man suit, and these disembodied spirits can inhabit them. But that is kind of my belief as to what some of these are. I'm not saying all of them, because if we're saying fallen angels are aliens, then that means angels are aliens as well, because they were one and the same. So that takes us to that. Now, do I believe they come from other planets? Sure, but I actually believe that those are possibly what we would call angels and what we would call the fallen angels as well. Then I know I'm kind of doing the unabridged, like the much shorter version of this, but that is what I believe. Now, if we're going back to the demons, I'm going to tie this back into demons, is that why do people get possessed by demons? It is because these demons want to experience what they can't experience anymore. You know, when they are walking the wastelands, when they're out in these wastelands and they're kind of on the other side, like think of the Upside Down, or when Constantine, when he kind of goes over to the other side, he sees our world, but it's all distorted and burning in fire. There is nothing alive there. There's no, you can't have a piece of apple pie. You can't have a, an ice cream. You can't smell the flowers. You can't go and have a good lay or something like that, because everything is death and destruction. So that is why these entities, these demons, want to possess people, is so that they can experience this again. So I believe that there is so many forms of possession. So many people are actually possessed, but they don't even truly know, because these beings have learned that if they get found out, they get kicked out. So that is why they I'm not saying it's why we have obesity, but I'm saying why there's some addictions. I believe addictions
Yeah.
sometimes are a form of possession as well. But that is a whole, like, you're talking about talking for 3 hours. I could talk 3 hours on that. I'm just trying to sum it up as quickly as possible. But yeah, so that's what I believe. I believe that some aliens are a break off civilization from civilizations such as Atlantis and Lemuria as well, and that's why the Germans were so gung ho on going to Antarctica, to New Schwabenland, and to discover that. And then that's why Admiral Byrd, after World War II, went down to Antarctica as well. And right after the first interview after going to Antarctica, he actually claimed that there was another continent as big as North America that he saw on the other side of Antarctica. And it wasn't it. So that would mean that the Earth is not exactly as shown or as told. So that could be on the other side, and that is why we're not allowed to go there. And then right after that happened, that's when the Antarctica Treaty, when all these countries came together, which is really strange. All these enemy countries, the Russians, China, the U.S., Canada, all these countries came together and agreed that this is we can't go past this. We can't go past this parallel. We can't go any further. But we'll have this one secret base. Well, not secret base, but we'll have this one scientific base, and that will appease everybody. And then people say, "Oh, I went to Antarctica, though. There's nothing there." You went to a point of Antarctica. You didn't go past it. So as you can see, I could keep going. I'm like, okay, I'm like off in this way. I'm off in this way when we're just asking me about UFOs and aliens. So there is, it's not just one thing. I think it is a multiple faceted, topic that takes a while to go through.
So by multiple faceted, do you mean like what's your belief in terms of dimensions? Like
unlimited.
Do you think that some of these aliens are also interdimensional beings as well?
100% I do. Like interdimensional beings exist, and that would explain I'm kind of walking away from aliens, but I'm going to the cryptid category. Like this is all connected. That's why you don't find any Bigfoot. That's why you don't find any Dogman, because these beings are interdimensional. They go through, as my good friend Brad would say, plasma portals. There's plasma portals that interconnect through the ether to our dimension from these other dimensions. And that is why we cannot find them. One of the telltale signs of these portals opening is a large metallic sound. Okay, so it's like metal grinding on metal, and that a lot of people have reported that. And then they see these creatures. They're like, it sounded like this big heavy door like creaking open or slamming open or something like that. And then they see these creatures. So this is, I believe, we are like the Russian stacking dolls. We're just one on top of the other. Our dimensions are on top of each other, but we don't really know how to access those other dimensions other than our sleep. But these creatures know how to pass through and come into our dimension. Now, and this is strictly a theory. This is just me like spitballing. But the longer they stay here in our dimensions, the more that they have to conform to our physics and to our laws of our laws of physics here. So the more real they become, and the better chance you can actually have to shoot and kill one. But as you see, there's been many people talking about trying to shoot and kill these types of creatures, and they just disappear, or it doesn't affect them. It's because they haven't been here that long to be able to be flesh and blood, to be killed.
Well, it's almost like you ever see The Lake? Was it? I think it was The Lake on Apple TV.
I have not.
Where no, okay, so you should watch it if you like M Night.
I do.
So it's a movie on that was done by M Night where I won't spoil it for you, but it's girl goes missing, but there's they go into this lake, and there's a point in this lake where they cross over into another plane of existence, but it's almost like a time warp.
Ooh, okay, I love it. Now,
so I know I'm giving you a lot tonight,
okay,
brother. But if I think it's called The Lake, is that what it is?
I'll have to definitely, and so I'll let you in on a little thing here. So, and this, people may say I am batshit crazy for saying this. I've
not on this podcast,
okay,
bro. I wouldn't.
I've
do that
seen through the other side. Okay, once I've saw through the other side once where I had. So I posted this on Reddit, and I got eaten alive because everyone's like, "Oh, you had an ocular migraine. You had an ocular migraine."
Fucking Reddit, dude.
Reddit is amazing, but it's also the worst. It's like that that meme from Mos Eisley from Star Wars. You know, that's the hive and scum and villainy. You know, this is where you're gonna find it is in Mos Eisley, which is Reddit. But it's also fantastic. I found some amazing people in there. But
I mean, I met some of my best friends from Reddit.
There we go.
So I can't lie about it. But yeah, I agree.
So I described what started out as an ocular migraine, and everybody's like, "It's an ocular migraine. It's an ocular migraine." An ocular migraine means that you see kind of like these prisms and these rainbows and these kind of weird lights. That's it. Okay, so it was as if they only read that part of my post. They didn't read the rest of it. So what? I was sitting in my car waiting to go into this grocery store. And as I'm about to go in, all of a sudden things start changing. So this is where people would say this would be an ocular migraine. I started seeing like these, it would be as if you stared at the sun for too long. And then you looked and you start getting like these weird flashes or this. So my best way to describe it was like plasma. I saw like this plasma kind of like this one, it almost was like a triangle on its side. And it was coming from one side over here and it was going up and down. And it was these intense colors. Like, I don't want to say it was like these, like one color was kind of modulating, constantly changing. And it was very intense, very bright. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? But I'm like, well, I need my cheese and my bacon. I got to go to the grocery store. So I'm standing in the deli line, and about 50% of my vision is obscured by this. Now I say it's a rip. I saw this rip. So it was this triangle. But I saw through this. In this triangle area is where I started to see something. Images started to form in front of me. And everyone's like, oh, it's just your mind playing tricks on you, until I start talking with other people who've seen on this other side. So what it was this barren landscape. It was, and remember when I said I referenced Constantine, how he went into like hell, and that's how it kind of looked? Well, kind of like that. It was this brownish reddish color. Everything had like this deep browns, and there was rubble strewn all on the ground, and it was in a warehouse. I could definitely see that it was a warehouse. On one wall was over here on this side. I could see a wall. This wall was blown out. In the far back, I could see these huge, but it was very far back, these huge industrial fans just slowly moving in a counterclockwise way. They were slow, like I think there were like 3 or 4 blades, and they're just like slowly moving. And they're in a box. Each one was in a box container with a mesh in the front. And then some of them were stacked too high. Some were only single high. And the sky itself was the same type of color. The clouds were like these coppery brownish color as well. Everything was. And it was this desolate area. And I swear to God, that was me seeing to the other side. And like I said, yeah, the beginning, sure, maybe was an ocular migraine, sure looked like it, but it transpired into this, and this was not like a short time. This was like 10, 15 minutes of me seeing this. So it wasn't just like this instant thing gone. No, I'm sitting there and studying all this and seeing on the ground, seeing this rubble. The rubble looked old, like it looked like it could have been from cinder blocks, but they were weathered enough that they were kind of starting to be rounded a little bit. And it was a place that there was no hope. no love, no nothing. It was just dead, desolate place. And I was just listening to one of my favorite podcasts is Tony Merkel. I was just listening to that where someone else was describing this desolate area that he saw through a portal, and he says this is exactly what I saw. And he describes the same colors. He saw this dead tree standing there, and he said it was the same damn colors. The sky was looking the same as well. And then I talked to another friend of mine, Paul Stobbs, who had a similar experience as well, where he ran into the Hat Man. He saw the Hat Man in this type of scenario as well. He says it was like this desolate street, and there was like a sign hanging that was hanging by one chain. It was kind of creaking in the wind, and he says the sky was the exact same color that I talked to. So this is not like when you said, like, how your brother had the similar experience. Well, when I had this experience, I'm like, man, this is crazy. And I started telling a couple people, like, I was like, and this just happened last August, and I started telling a couple people. And that's when I started listening to, and when Paul Stobbs told me, he's like, I had similar experience. And then I just listened to this episode on the confessionals just recently. And that's when I was like, dude, that's exactly what I saw. So that's crazy.
So do you think that was a different, like, you kind of tapped into a different, not reality, but maybe a different time era?
That's something someone else said too.
Like maybe it was like
fast forward,
like the U.S. like 200 years from now, or something. Like, do you think that's what that was?
In all honesty, I don't know. It could be. It could be. My personal belief was that I saw the area where these disembodied spirits inhabit, and they want to get out of to get into this place full of life. But that's just a theory, right?
Okay.
That is just me making a theory. Could it be in the future? Because some people said, well, could it be the future? It very well could be. And that is just my gut feeling of what I'm saying. But
yeah,
it's all anecdotal. It's just me guessing, like, I know what I saw. That's what I saw. What did I see? I don't know. I'm like, I think it's this, but is it? I don't know.
After talking to the guy last week, because he said something to me, he said my chakra was in my neck, or that I'm very good with talking to people, but knowing people's emotions before they happen. And he was right, because like that shit hits me, dude. Like I could typically, I understand a room, and I could typically get people before they even say shit. Like all my life. I feel like us as humans, I don't know if we're conduits. Maybe that's the best word to say, is that we're a conduit for things. I think that we all have something. Like we all have an ability to tap into something, whether that's tapping into a different realm, tapping into a different timeline. I don't know. I do think that we are conduits of our own lives, and I do think that some of us, maybe not all of us, can understand, all right, this is what's happening. I understand I'm awake. Like, this is what's going on. Yeah. But I don't think that we as a species have enough cognizance to understand what it is.
Yes.
And maybe that's developmental. Maybe we have to develop that as a species, or maybe it's designed that way so that we don't know if what you saw was the future, or if what you saw was a different reality where these beings are trying to get out of, because it's more of a prison for them. Like, we don't know, right? And will we ever know? I don't know.
No,
that's the beauty of life. I
agree.
Right?
Like, it would be being transported to Mars. Let's say you could just live on Mars, but you instantly get transported. You've never been there before. What is this place? What are you seeing? You have no idea. There's no context. There's nothing to be able to, or, well, of course we got pictures from Mars. So let's say we go to some other strange area, someplace that no human has ever been, or maybe one or two people have maybe talked about it on the fringe, but you've never heard it. And you're like, what am I seeing? Where am I? And you're trying to give it context. There's no context. And I agree with you saying that we're some sort of conduit. I believe that. I believe we all have these innate abilities that we truly don't know. I think they got turned off. I think we're like a governor that happens on cars where you can't go over a certain speed limit. I think that happened to us, that we were toned down a little bit, that we still have these. And every now and then we can kind of like access them. Some people have a better chance of accessing them than others. And it's also like a muscle. The more you use it, the better off, the the better you are with it. Like the gentleman there, the poker player. He was able to. You knew he was connecting, and it's because he's been practicing playing poker with it, which is
Goosebumps,
crazy.
bro. I had fucking goosebumps in it. I'm a skeptic.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right away, I'm a skeptic. I always like to look at things like, oh, is that guy fucking bullshitting me? I don't know, man. It just, I had goosebumps, and that doesn't happen often when I get that. So it was a unique experience.
I could imagine.
And it was great. Great fucking entertainment, I'll tell you that.
Yes, exactly.
But look, I could probably talk to you for another 2 hours.
Easily.
Bro. I didn't even get to fucking half my shit because that's just
That's how things go, man. That's how it always goes. Yeah.
Let all my listeners know, where can they find your stuff. If you got something coming up, let us know what's going on.
For sure. Yeah. My podcast and show, I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the above. It's Codega's Codex of Curiosities. And, I'm always looking for new material. So if someone's had like some crazy experiences that you heard me talking about today, by all means, like hit me up on one of those sites. I reach out to everybody. I'm on Facebook as well, Rye Voss. And or just look up Codega's Codex of Curiosities to find me. And I just released an episode on elves, Icelandic elves today, and I got a fantastic one coming up next week. I have a gentleman who has he believes he has discovered the true identity of Jack the Ripper through DNA.
Ooh.
So that's coming up next week. Stay tuned for that one. That was a fantastic episode and very scientific in how we went through it all. So it's very interesting as well.
Dude, fucking love it, man. I love what you're doing, dude.
Thanks, man.
Keep it up. You have a great show. You got an awesome concept. I love what's going on. My podcast, Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials. Drink O'Clock Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, it's there. Yeah, man. Look, we'll probably have this episode up tomorrow. Hopefully.
Awesome. Okay, just like that. Boom.
Thanks to AI.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, man. We'll just keep it going. But dude, it was a great conversation, and I definitely have to have you back on, man. Let's do it
For sure.
again.
I agree.
Awesome, man. You have a great night.
Too.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise the bar.